There was a period in my life where I genuinely could not tell if I was being a good friend or disappearing into someone else's orbit. I was checking in constantly, reading tone and text messages like I was decoding ancient ruins, and somehow convinced that if I just anticipated every need before it became a problem, I would finally feel okay. I didn't have language for what I was doing. I just thought I was someone who cared a lot. Hey, I'm Dr. Regina, Ph.D., and this is Divergent Paths, the podcast where we talk about all the things that late-diagnosed neurodivergent folk experience. Make sure to subscribe to my newsletter, Nerd Notes, where I share even more information and tips for making your weirdness feel like home. The link is in the show description. In this episode, I want to walk through 3 things that anxious attachment and codependency share, and why, for a lot of late-diagnosed neurodivergent people, these patterns are so easy to mistake for personality rather than wiring. I've said this a lot as we've been talking about attachment styles and the ways that we relate to each other. Attachment and codependency are both nervous system strategies. These are both ways that we have attempted to protect ourselves in different situations. Anxious attachment develops when your connection, usually to your primary caregivers when you were younger, felt inconsistent or unpredictable. The nervous system learns to stay hyper-vigilant because you can't afford to miss their signals for connection because that sense and need for belonging is so high. Codependency develops when your emotional safety became dependent on managing someone else's emotional state. Your nervous system learns their regulation is your regulation. When you're late diagnosed or late identified as neurodivergent and you've been masking heavily, both of these patterns look like you being able to read the room, being able to come in and take like the emotional temperature in whatever setting you're at, with your friends, with your family, and at work. This gets rewarded and reinforced before you recognize the problem that wiring has provided for you. This ends up being a direct result of never having language for what your nervous system was doing. That self-erasure, that way you go in and create an identity for every situation you walk into, is rewarded because it makes the other people feel seen. Both your anxious attachment and the codependency produce a version of this self-abandonment where you turn into whoever other people need you to be. Because it's socially praised, you get called thoughtful, giving, low maintenance. Spoiler alert, all relationships require maintenance, all of them. And nobody's really low maintenance. That's just a myth. Anybody who's been trying to be low maintenance, just know that has likely been you ignoring your needs for your whole life. It's me. I tried to be low maintenance for many, many years. This whole process of being able to read the room really well, being tied to anxious attachment and codependency, is compounded by masking. You're turning yourself into who you need to be in order to belong. And that's a layer of the self-abandonment. That is a layer of you putting yourself into these situations and becoming that person in order to feel like you belong. It doesn't feel like you're erasing yourself at all. It feels like it's Tuesday. And this is just what you do. This is what you've always done. This is it. This is how we do things. Understanding the cost is usually a very internal thing. Like you have to look inside yourself and start to recognize where the moments of drain come from. Where are you paying more attention to someone else's emotional state than your own? What are the relationships? What are the circumstances? What are the places and people where that's happening? And how much of a toll is it taking? I've talked recently about interoception, which is that ability you have to read your own internal signals. And if that's suppressed because you're neurodivergent, it's harder to get in there and to see and to experience your own internal functioning. When you get your late diagnosis and you have this framework, suddenly you realize that a lot of you isn't left underneath it. Like all of a sudden you start seeing these attachments and these maybe people-pleasing tendencies that you had. And you start to recognize that you don't know who you are because you abandoned yourself for so long. I faced a lot of this in many of my relationships. One of the ways, this is ironic, but one of the ways I think I have behaved in people-pleasing and as a means of soothing my anxious attachment was downplaying my intelligence, deferring to people who maybe weren't experts like I am. It's even hard for me to say that sentence. And I have worked so hard for so long to be an expert. It's still hard for me to say it. I have downplayed my stance as an expert, and I have a very good friend who has been very adamant about me embracing calling myself Dr. Regina. The fact that I introduce this podcast as Dr. Regina Ph.D., I am a doctor, but not that kind of doctor, comes in part from conversations I had with him over the years, where we went to E3, which was a big gaming conference years ago for the gaming industry, the video gaming industry. He made sure that it was highlighted on my badge that I was Dr. Regina. Even when we went to get coffee and he ordered a coffee for me, my cup came back with Dr. Regina on it. I have downplayed that success and what it means for most of the time I've had it. And I did that in part because I want to feel relatable to people sometimes. And when you lead with having a PhD, that's not always relatable to people. I will even sometimes make sure when I am positioning myself that way to acknowledge the fact that, yes, I have a PhD, but I'm also the first person in my family who graduated from college at all, that neither my parents or my siblings, only one of my siblings graduated from high school. The fact that I have my college degree, but that I got a PhD puts me in this outstanding place. And it's only in this moment right now, as I'm recording this podcast, that I realize that part of the reason that I've downplayed my PhD and downplayed my expert status and my intelligence is because I've always worried that it would oust me in terms of belonging, because it is something that not very many people do. Because of that, I have been worried about how it would other me in circumstances. Being able to embrace it, being able to create this podcast and own that is a sign of how far I have come in my journey of uncovering the self that lived underneath the abandonment and the people-pleasing that I've done for so much of my life. The fact that I am 2 years post-diagnosis and coming up with this means this is a long journey. It takes time to unlearn these patterns after you're diagnosed, because being able to see the pattern doesn't always mean you can stop it. It's really important to recognize that there are several steps that go from being able to have the name to being able to say the thing and being able to change how you actually behave around it. Because anxious attachment and codependency both involve your somatic, your body experience. The pull to check in constantly, to smooth over, to make yourself useful, that's a nervous system response that happens before you can really think about it, right? It just sort of takes over. And because we've had that reinforced for so long, it means breaking out of it takes time too. It takes time and consideration. On top of that, there's the identity disruption that you go through when you've been the capable person. You were the friend who was there for everybody. You were able to self-sacrifice to belong in any group. I used to say that about my high school experience. I still say that. I didn't really belong to a single clique. I belonged to all of them in some aspect. That was because I could turn myself into whatever each of those cliques needed me to be. Losing that does feel like losing part of yourself. But I think I've said this before recently too. It allows you to go deeper into your relationships. And it doesn't mean you stop caring, because really what you were doing wasn't caring for the other people. You are just prioritizing their comfort. And that doesn't allow for real intimacy in any way. Now, when I think about the era of my life where I was constantly checking in on other people, that wasn't love. I thought it was love. I thought it was me being there for them, being a good person. And instead, it was a very clever survival strategy that took so much energy and drained so much from me. And it has taken me a long time to learn that it's not a useful strategy. Often the hardest part of having a late diagnosis or being late identified as neurodivergent isn't just learning why your brain does what it does. It's realizing how much of what you thought was actually you just trying to stay safe. And sit with that and let it permeate you as you approach your journey to understand yourself underneath some of these structures and underneath some of these survival strategies that kept you safe for so long. Think about it. Think about when you're in a moment, whose emotions are you tracking? When was the last time you checked in on your own? If any of this resonated for you today, I'd love to hear it. You can hit me up on Instagram at Dr. Regina Ph.D. You can sign up for my newsletter, Nerd Notes. The link is in the show notes. I'm also booking clients for my deep dive session called The Nerd Out. Until next time, I hope you sit with what it feels like to check in on yourself too.